Welcome to our presentation about detecting earnings management by DeChow, Sloan, and Sweeney. Earnings management can be defined as intentionally manipulating financial reports to obtain private gain. Earnings management is an almost common practice, and only the most severe cases tend to get detected, let alone punished. A good example of earnings management is General Electric, who in 2002 manipulated their earnings by claiming it had sold over 100 locomotives that were actually still running idle on GE property. This paper discusses the problem of detecting earnings management and evaluates 5 different models and tries to find the best suitable model for detecting earnings management. We will start by describing the 5 different models, then we will discuss the experimental design, and in conclusion we will discuss the findings of the paper and which model is the most effective in detecting earnings management. Every model uses non-discretionary accruals as a measure for earnings management. The first model is the basic model, on which all other models are based upon. The Healy model basically makes a comparison between a prior situation where earnings are managed upwards and a following situation where they are managed downwards. The purpose of a model is to detect large differences. The D'Angelo model can be seen as a specification of the Healy model because it uses the same basic outline but is restricted to the previous year's observation. The D'Angelo model is more useful when non-discretionary accruals follow a random walk instead of a constant one. The Jones model is a more complex model because it attempts to control for the effect of changes in a firm's economic circumstances. The modified Jones model attempts to eliminate the conjecture tendency of the Jones model by adjusting the change in revenues for the change in receivables. If this modified model is successful, then the estimation of earnings management is no longer biased, which was a limitation of the Jones model. The industry model is a slightly adjusted version of the Jones model because it focuses on the variation in non-discretionary accruals across firms in the same industry. To determine the effectiveness of these models, they use them to detect earnings management in 4 different samples. They use a randomly selected sample, a sample with firms experiencing extreme financial performance, a sample with artificially induced earnings management, and a sample of firms who were flagged by the SEC for overstating their annual earnings. In the random sample, the standard errors were lowest for the Jones model and the modified Jones model, and the highest for the D'Angelo model, which suggests that the first 2 models are the most effective at detecting earnings management. The detection of earnings management in the sample of firms with extreme financial performance is often difficult, because the stimulus under investigation is correlated with cash flow performance and therefore often leads to misspecified tests. The sample with artificially induced earnings shows that the modified Jones model dominates all other models in determining earnings management, though it only dominates the industry model by a small margin. The sample of firms who were flagged by the SEC for overstating their annual earnings also confirm these findings. Conclusively, this paper finds all models appear to produce reasonably well-specified tests. However, the power of the test is low for earnings management of economically plausible magnitudes. Overall, this paper concludes that the modified Jones model provides the most powerful test in detecting earnings management. This paper gives an insight into how detecting earnings management can be achieved. Using this, we can predict or maybe even prevent future earnings management cases, like the General Electric one, so that Thomas the Tank Engine may ride once more.
Created using Powtoon.